great. If you haven't read it, you should. All right, Paul, let's start. Craig, let's start with a future site for the college football championship. Our good friend Phil Zenzer is lit up on this one. Vegas will host it in 2027, New Orleans in 28, Dallas in 2029, Miami in the month or the year of 2030, negotiating the host title games. If they don't reach a deal, they'll have backup sites in Houston, Phoenix, and also Tampa. Kind of like the same rotation you would see, quite frankly, with the Super Bowl games, too.
Yeah, not a surprise. And look, Las Vegas is getting more and more stuff. I mean, Big 12 Media Days is there for crying out loud. There's, championship being there makes a lot of sense. Keep rotating it around. It's funny to me that Dallas is going to get another one of those before they get another Super Bowl. I don't know why they blame Jerry for the weather so much that happened, but because he can't control that. He can barely control anything. But, I think it's good. It'll be fun in Las Vegas. It'll be a cool place to have it, and probably a place that'll attract more people do you want to go to the championship game even though you're not a fan of either of the two teams in it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think it's not a surprise. The same cities that we see listed for pretty much every major event. I mean, there's some outside pockets for, the Final Four sites and things that are a little bit more unique. But when it comes to football, I mean, the only city that seems to really be missing here is like Atlanta as far as the typical stop-ins. Los Angeles, I'd say, would be on that list as well. But beyond that, these are the typical boxes that you check. Tampa, Phoenix, Houston, as alternates. They've all hosted Super Bowls in the past. They've hosted, major events. Phoenix obviously has hosted a big bowl game every year for quite a while now, or the Glendale area. These are the typical cities you look at, although Las Vegas is unique because for so long it was taboo, and now it's as though everything is going there. They just announced WrestleMania last week is heading to Vegas. You mentioned Big 12 Media Days, not that that's the same level of event as the others we've mentioned, but still it's just another event that's headed there that otherwise in years past would have not ever have even thought about the possibility of hosting there. So, they're going to have had everything outside of the NBA Finals, I guess, here in the next 5 years or so, and that's simply because they don't have an NBA team, although that seems like it's probably going to happen sooner rather than later. We know that the A's are on their way, so the rich get richer, literally,
Hockey
in
is
Vegas.
on its way,
Hockey's there.
Hockey's there, just hosted Stanley Cups and won Stanley Cups. Yeah.
Yeah. They won't host a World Series anytime soon if the A's are there, but still –
that's about it.
You know what? I just got completely flipped on Salt Lake City. They're the ones that are getting the new franchise.
Yeah, Vegas has won an actual cup already.
They're the defending champions until Dallas knocked them out.
The opposite of Vegas, Salt Lake City?
Yes. So, by the way, the championship game next January is in Atlanta, and then Miami the following year in 2026 at Hard Rock Stadium.
And Miami will super care about everyone there.
In 2030, where are the Hurricanes playing? We'll see how much of an appetite there is for college football, but obviously it's a destination site. New Orleans is New Orleans. I mean, that's an old go-to. And it is interesting. Dallas obviously looked at more favorably by other leagues than the NFL, where their whole basis for building a stadium originated. That's the one league that seemingly doesn't want to give them anything after that Super Bowl that Paul mentioned. And I guess things could have been handled better, but I also know it was a freak once-in-a-lifetime weather incident that just so happened to line up timing-wise, and it ruined the week, but that really wasn't Jerry's fault. There's the seating fiasco, though, as well, so I don't know. Maybe that adds up to them just spurning him, but, man, if you don't get a second Super Bowl in that place, I just feel like that's as many events as you've hosted, you'd still rather have hosted a couple of Super Bowls. I feel like that was more of what you were looking for than the CMAs or whatever.
I think it was not even the weather. I know the weather was awful. Don't get me wrong. Mother Nature, we've seen that around here and elsewhere throughout the year. I think it was because they tried to jam another couple of hundred people into that stadium. And remember, let's not forget those temporary seats fell.
Yeah.
And
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. I mean, so that's a double whammy with them. Yeah.
And the triple whammy, and I think everybody that does this makes it, I think San Francisco made a mistake with it. Look, the Super Bowl needs to be in a pretty tight little area. That's why Vegas was so good for it, and Vegas would be good for everything else because everything's going to be right there in the Strip. It's right there. There's nothing.
New Orleans is a 10-minute bus ride from most hotels.
Yeah, so like everything is not like that big of a deal. But the places that are like Dallas are like, it's the North Texas Super Bowl. Like, dudes, you know how big this area is.
Yeah, no, it's so spread out. And so there we are. Those are the upcoming, what appear to be the sites outside of Atlanta. And then Miami and then Vegas would be next in line. Now, speaking of the college football playoff, this was something that was also put out there today. NBC has added an extra regular season NFL game on the weekend of Saturday, Saturday, December 21st. Now, why is that of interest? Because, as you'll see with Chris Vanini, that is the first round of the college football playoff games this year. And so instead of that being what would have been on streaming, they're going to put that game, the NFL game, on NBC. What a day it'll be to sit down and have a football buffet, college and then also the NFL.
Garrett, I'm needing the one shot on me for this one. This is where I'm going to chastise the leaders of college football. There we are, right here. I'm going to look right at the camera. You guys are idiots. You had all this time to own December, and now you've got this really cool new thing coming where you have 3 playoff games on a Saturday, and they're going to be hurt by the NFL ratings-wise because you guys gave them December years ago and couldn't look out in front of you and see what was going on. This is what happens when you capitulate and do stupid things because you're antiquated and you can't figure out how to move forward until you're made to. Stop making decisions with a gun to your head, and the NFL completely took advantage of you, and they're not going to care, and they're not giving it back. So enjoy losing ratings on the most important Saturday of your year in college football because you made this bad decision years ago.
And you know what? The NFL didn't even have to fight for it. They just walked through your back door and took everything in your house and walked out with it.
Yeah, I mean, if we're drawing sides and like picking teams, then I typically be team college football, but I'm a sports fan first and foremost. So great news. Yeah, I get to watch a playoff game in the NFL and a playoff game in college football simultaneously on a Saturday night in late December, right before Christmas. I'm not disappointed about that. I mean, I think we can all figure out a way to watch 2 things at once, and if one of them sucks, then we got an option on the other TV. But I mean, the NFL has shown that they don't care about college football in terms of, for the most part, worrying about, being out of their way, whereas college football has willingly ducked out of the way of the NFL or outright avoided them at various turns. And so, yeah, there's a difference in philosophies. Obviously, one's the juggernaut, and they can afford to do that no matter what. But, yeah, I think college football kind of being a little weak-minded when it comes to, I guess, marking their territory. Shouldn't be surprised that the NFL's run up on their territory once again, and they had multiple opportunities, you guys said, to kind of carve out their niche and didn't do so for whatever reason. So, I mean, as a sports fan, that's great. I'm not going to complain about that. As a college football fan, I mean, if you care about the ratings that particular game gets, then, yeah, it's going to be hurt, no doubt about it. But, fellas, we got to remind ourselves, we're not TV executives.
Yep.
It's not hurting our pockets. We're sports fans, so yay. But, yeah, for the moneymakers in college football, I'm sure that they winced a little bit when they saw that news because that is going to carve who knows what kind of a dent into whatever game that is, and whatever game that is will also be very important because if it's Alabama, Texas, then I'm sure the ratings will be A-okay, and they'll get 7, 8, 10 million, whatever the number is. If it's, Liberty and Oregon, like we had last year, a non-playoff game, but in this situation would be a playoff game, then, yeah, that's probably going to get carved up by whatever NFL game, no matter what the matchup is.
The NFL game will have 20-something million or more at the minimum. Yeah, you're exactly right. All right, so earlier today, this was of interest. Tomorrow, Baylor Director of Athletics Mack Rhodes will join us for the first time in a couple of months. Baylor now has established its own in-house NIL unit. Now, GXG remains very heavily involved with Baylor and the NIL collective. David Kay, who we've known for a long time, was the media relations director for men's basketball for a long time, and now has been a part of the administrative part of the athletic department. He and also Halim will take over that particular part, and this is like changing. They're in it. We've seen what they're doing. Scott Drew, probably among the top 5 when it comes to NIL, when it comes to college basketball. Football had to play a little bit of catch-up, and Dave Aranda admitted part of that was him. But this was interesting. They actually have their own now section that will be NIL starting effective immediately. David K will be in studio, we think, here on Wednesday.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to talk to him because I want to know, like, if he has a wish list of how this needs to go. I want to know, like, what the wish list is for somebody who's stepping in to this job and who's seen it. Other schools create it. He's the general manager, which I don't even know what, like, specifically his gear is other than general managing, so that'll be really interesting to hear what DK is doing. And he is a guy who is ridiculously selfless. I'll tell you that. And
he's a grinder.
Yeah, he is. He is really. Yeah, he's that dude. So it'll be interesting to see how they morph and change and grow the departments, because this is a new thing, and to be in charge of a new thing is exciting and terrifying and all these things at once.
Haneen, by the way, also played a role in building the NIL program at Oklahoma State, so she has some experience there, as Baylor then announces that earlier today.
I mean, congratulations to both of them. I'm not super interested in like the ins and outs of NIL. I think we've discussed that, and there's some that love the that part of the industry, and they're fascinated by like how the ins and outs works. And I am interested in some of that, but I don't love how much of a part of the game that it's become and how on the forefront it is. But I know that there's also nothing to change that now at this point, and it is what it is, and that's very much going to be a part of the conversation when it comes to college sports these days. So you better have your ducks in a row, and you better be prepared for handling things as a university, as opposed to the early days that we've seen where it's this weird, strange land of bizarre rules where you're so limited with contact, even though when it boils down to it, you are basically picking the players that you want to play for your university and having to like outsource that responsibility to handle that to a collective that is still working with you, but not officially. It was dumb the way this was all set up. So now that everybody's kind of learning the lay of the land, the rules are changing to make a bit more sense. And you are going to see, I think, moving forward, more people who are able to operate fully in-house. Then, yeah, it only makes sense to continue to carve out a space in your athletic department to handle those things. And David K seems well-equipped to be the guy getting that call. I don't know much about his partner in crime here, but we'll learn about her, I'm sure as time goes by and meet at some point. So, yeah, congratulations to them. And this is just another sign of, the world we live in now when it comes to college athletics, that, there's a whole nother office, a whole department in your building, a whole nother piece of the puzzle that you now have because of NIL, and that itself just continues to grow. So, yeah, I think we're going to see this everywhere sooner rather than later, where there's more in-house operations.
Terrence Brooks played at Texas. Now all of a sudden entered the transfer portal. There were thoughts about where he might end up, and Illinois is where he ends up to play for the Fighting Illini in the Big Ten.
Kind of out of nowhere. I thought, Tech or somewhere like that, but, man, go spread your wings and fly. Enjoy Illinois, Terrence Brooks.
Yeah, Big Ten money, I guess. It was just strange. It was random to me because I wasn't following his recruitment particularly closely, just loosely, and seen a tweet a couple days prior that was indicating he was going to, pick between or was going to visit a couple of different schools, and Illinois wasn't one of those. So I figured he was still, in the process of visiting and was going to be continuing that for, I guess, a little bit longer. But no, then all of a sudden I see the tweet pop up like the same day later on that he had committed to Illinois. So, yeah, seems like a really good get for the Illini. Obviously had some good moments at Texas. USC was I was trying to think of was where he was supposed to be visiting apparently. But I guess and then was going to visit Michigan. But then I guess the Illinois visit was so good that he didn't feel the need to. Or, however that worked out. I mean, good for Illinois because clearly you had schools like Southern Cal and Michigan, they were also planning to have him visit. So I don't know what happens with all of that. It would seem you'd shut that down. But, yeah, just on the surface, it's a great get, you'd think, for the Illini.
Very nice pickup. And Terrence Brooks is a guy that was a ball hawk, but at the same time he was it was kind of like it looked like it was to me. It just felt that, hey, I'm going to enter the portal, okay. Like one of those things. Texas, of course, has tried to respond with what they have as well, and filled it both high school, huh?
He's the only starter they lost in the portal.
I know, and we're going to get to that in just a second about returning, not just starting production, but returning production here in 1 second. Speaking of which, Here is something, theathletic.com, I mentioned this story about the transfer portal. Bruce Feldman, Max Olson, Sam Kahn, among others, wrote a story. And inside the transfer portal and how it works. So they went and talked with coaches, players, agents, whoever. Here's one of the quotes from a head coach. And this is like my favorite because this is like my life on the highway. It's so out of control because everybody knows there's not any regulations to it. It's like you're on the freeway and there's a speed limit but no cops. I mean, there is no regulatory body like there is in theory, but nobody cares. Don't go to the next one, Garrett. Let's discuss this one.
This is such a, the only rule, Garrett and I just talked about this a couple hours ago. The only rule it appears that there is don't talk about the recruits or how much they're getting. That's the only thing that would really get you kind of in trouble, I guess. Everything else, look, you'll hear a lot of coaches come out and say, like, we had people contacting kids on our roster and all these different things. But the thing is, they can't really call them out because there's no way, especially given the size of coaching staffs, that, I could say, like, nobody in this room right here is contacting recruits on other people's roster. And then Emory could be like, well, not nobody, I don't know what he's doing all the time and all that. So those are the things that you have to worry about. So it's one of those things like, oh, really? And like I heard Coach Emory is certainly sending out some DMs on Instagram for people. So, yeah, there's
it's how
really
did you say,
complex.
Go ahead, Craig. You respond to that, and then we'll go back to how guys and girls date.
Oh,
now.
look,
no, hold on. Let Craig.
No,
have
I don't have any
go
response
ahead.
to this.
All right,
Yeah,
go ahead.
and look,
so in other words, DMs are very much involved.
Yeah,
here,
so the thing, part of the other thing I saw in the article I thought was really hilarious and odd was that coaches will follow a kid on Instagram. If he follows back, that means he's interested. If he likes and you like, well, that's how kids date nowadays. It's weird, man, that's what you're doing in the transfer portal, but I guess it's kind of a similar dance. But yeah, it is such a weird thing. And look, there needs to be structure around it, but I do pity people trying to figure out how to do it without any.
There's a lot of different quotes, anonymous. So these are from head coaches. Here's one from an agent. Now look at this one and read this one. I had a defensive line coach reach out to me over the winter break, and he told me, these are the positions I need to fill. Send me the list of your guys who are willing to enter the portal. I gave him a list. It was as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it. I mean, look, like recruiting was never clean prior. Even when you had rules surrounding recruiting, we know that there was still under the table happenings going on. There was cash envelopes and lockers. There was all sorts of nonsense. There was still the street agents. There was still the specialty coaches, right? And not all of them, not going to paint them all with a broad brush. A lot of them that do really good work. There's also a lot of them that are like, living vicariously or acting as agents for players because they're like, their uncle or whatever. And so recruiting's never been clean. It's always been dirty. We can go back to, Barry Switzer stories of recruiting Billy Sims back in the day. And I mean, on and on and on. That's part of the fabric of college football. But yeah, it's just now that the money's on the surface, and yet there's still this hiding that's necessary. And that's what just blows my mind is that, for all the complaining about it, like there's still people looking for ways to cheat. Like they're still like feverishly looking for ways to cheat. And that part of it just never, ever stops. So yeah, when you have no rules, I guess it's technically not cheating necessarily. And we all know that even the rules that are in place, even if you break those, you can have Jeff Traylor go out and call people out directly on Twitter and nobody's going to bat an eye or flinch. And if anything, he looks like the bad guy in this weird backwards world that we live in where there are no rules. So yeah, I'm not surprised by any of that. And I also, don't feel so much for the coaches when I know that the guys that they're complaining about, they're turning around and going and doing the same damn thing as soon as they need a defensive lineman. So yeah, there's a lot of messiness when it comes to the talent acquisition now. There's a really simple way to do it, but the powers that be don't want to do that because it would take too much of their bottom line and take too much of their power. And so we all could have the very simple solution that would wrap this all up, and you can make players employees, and we could just cut to the chase and be done with 95% of the nonsense that we talk about. But they refuse to do that because it would just take away too much money, too much control, and it would be too different, I guess, from typical college football. But really, it wouldn't be. I mean, so long as most of the status quo stayed the same, such as you actually are a student at that school, things like that. But yeah, it's a mess. It's been a mess since it began. The whole NIL courtship and recruiting and the way that schools are able to work alongside these collectives or these agents. And so, yeah, if you don't want to, actually put pen to paper and get to a situation where legally there are contracts that prevent some of those things without harsh repercussions, then you're going to deal with the messiness of it all. And I don't really feel sorry because that's the game that you created, so to speak.
All right, Paul. So Urban Meyer all of a sudden thinks they're cheating.
Here's the thing. It's not so much that Urban Meyer said that it's cheating. I don't know what Urban Meyer knows what cheating is, because here's the deal. If everybody can do it, it's not cheating. So if you can do it without punishment, then it's not cheating. So I don't think he likes it because it would, if he got back into college coaching, it would take away the control that he used to have.
Well, it's very much cheating because it's not going, like, you're not supposed to be in guys' DMs and you're not supposed to be doing any of that. So that's very much cheating, but that is also college football.
Yeah, but no, his point wasn't the DMs. It was
his competitive advantage.
It was the pay for play stuff.
Yeah.
Well, that is cheating. It's not supposed to be what it is, and I know we can parse those words, but he's technically right.
Yeah, but it's not. Again, if you're not going to punish it, then and everybody can do it, then it's a lot like. Again,
it is cheating, but they just are toothless and they can't do anything about it. And that's the whole maddening part of it, and why I get sick of talking about these coaches who are upset about it, because they're the same ones that turn around and then go after that defensive end and his DMs. And so I feel like everybody's kind of hypocritical here.
Very.
And yet they can say, well, we have to do that because the other guys are doing that, and if we don't do that, then we lose our competitive advantage. So everything, Paul, is under the guise of, the competitive advantage.
Yeah.
And so that's the excuse for doing it. But yeah, I mean, it is cheating, but it's part of the deal.
Okay, we got Coach Drew coming up.
My point being is that there's nothing preventing anyone from doing it at all. So it's not the same way that cheating would be before.
Garrett, just let me know when the DPS and police stop monitoring I-35, would you?
I'll be on.